The Jacksonville Jaguars have a very complex history to go along with very complex fans. I'll tell you all about it here on this edition of Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Locked On Jaguars. I am the host of the Locked On Jaguars, Tony Wiggins, where it's your team every day. And we thank you for making us your first listen. Quick reminder, we're free to subscribe to on our YouTube page. That is Locked On Jaguars. Make sure you go there, hit the like button, subscribe, and then hit the bell so you receive notifications each and every time we drop an episode. Also, make sure wherever you get your podcast on a daily basis, if you're driving around in your car or sitting at your desk when you're supposed to be working, make sure that what you do is click in every single day to make sure you don't miss an episode. That's the way you got to do it, man. You got to make sure you don't miss an episode of Locked On Jaguars. All right, download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Also, man, look, we got to thank the everydayers for joining us every single day here on the Locked On Jaguars podcast. And without you, there is no us. So we appreciate it. You can be an everydayer. All you got to do is check us out every single day. All right, look, today's show, I'm doing it live, and I'm doing it live for a reason. And hopefully the reason will resonate with you, because the first time I say this, I want you to hear it the first time. I don't want to rehearse it. I don't want to edit it, right? I always say you're an expert at knowing yourself, right? And I know the Jacksonville Jaguars. I know the city. I know the people because I'm a native of Jacksonville. So hopefully that will be conveyed to you today with the message that I have. So what we're going to do is go over why can't the Jaguars prosper? And it's layered, and it's a little web. And I don't want to blame fans for it because they've been blamed for enough stuff. I don't want to say that it's all one person or one group of people. But I do want to give an insight to how that could change, right? And we'll also go over past, present, and future. I think those things are all important when you look at the big picture of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I just believe that everything has to be put in its place. So we'll talk about that. And then last but not least, free your mind and the rest will follow. That is a message not only to the fans, to the people that cover the team, but more importantly, to the people that make decisions about this franchise. If you're watching on YouTube or if you see this on social media, you'll see a thumbnail of a beautiful young little boy that says he's the number one Jaguars fan. At some point, when I think about past, present, and future, that is very much present. We always talk about being present. That is very much right now. But 20 years ago, that was a kid now that's 26, 27 years old, and he hasn't seen anything that is remotely successful. And I don't want that little kid to grow up in the future and be a 27-year-old and have his own 7-year-old son at the game. And we're sitting here talking about the same things that we were talking about before. So that's why we're going to get into this today. Why can't the Jaguars prosper? Well, they just haven't been good enough. This is a right now business. Football is about blocking and tackling. Football is about what you do on Sundays. Football is about what you do on Sundays that reflects what you have done leading up to that point. What you do during the season reflects what you have done leading up to that point and what you have learned from seasons in the past. So it's all kind of intertwined together. But the thing that gets me is this. What do we accept? Do we accept things just because of where we've been? Are the leaders, is it resonating with them that 2 straight chances to go to the playoffs or to hover around 500, to marginally be a decent football team, to not be an embarrassment the way that they have been for 19 of the 27 years they've existed? They've had 8 winning seasons in 27 seasons. Is this all about, hey, man, at least we ain't as bad as we used to be? I want you to think about that for a minute. At least we aren't as bad as we used to be. And tell me how that's going to change tomorrow. How's that going to change the future? One of the things I've always talked about with this franchise is you can't continue to rebuild your foundation every 2 years. And by that, I mean changing, constantly changing. Every time you change a coordinator, every time you change a coach, every time you change major players on the team, that's a start over, right? So inherently, that will make you think that I'm against change. I'm not. I'm not against change at all. What I'm against is the thing that leads to the past, the thing in the past that leads to you feeling like you made change or you need change. I'm talking about making the right damn decision in the first place. Just because I don't want to create or recreate the foundation, because when you recreate the foundation, you never get elevation. That house, I always talk about it being a slab being laid, a foundation being laid, and then the house being erected, and eventually you get the elevation. Shout out to people that just build houses like me, because you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then you can finally see it, and you can finally sit in it, and you can finally enjoy it. You can have a day off and drink coffee and tea on your back porch while the wind blows through your hair or across your hair, depending on who you are and how you live it, right? So I'm just saying, don't not change just because change means you have to start over. I'm also saying, don't change just to do change, right? The Jaguars, after Tom Coughlin was the only coach. They were over 500 three consecutive years. The Jacksonville Jaguars back in 1997, 1998, and 1999. Those 3 years. This is the only time in the history that they've had 3 consecutive above 500 clubs. After that, they haven't done that again. So it seems to me that they've done a constant starting over. In 2004, 2005, they had 2 years consecutive over 500. 2006, they were close because they were 8-8. So I'm going through history. And the reason I'm going through these historical things, because I know if you've been a Jaguar fan long enough, that history affects the way you feel about this team right now. Some people call it Stockholm syndrome, if it's bad things that you're resonating with from the past, right? But how can that help us tomorrow? I think an attitude adjustment has to be had by the people, not only that cover the team, but the fans of the team. I don't think management are going to sit here and make decisions based on your feelings. I'm not naive enough to think that we have that much power. But if your attitude is reflected by what you spend, and your attitude is reflected by what everybody pays attention to, how their brand is being perceived. I do feel like the laissez-faire attitude that some of us have, based on we just don't want it to be as bad as it used to be, I think it does give a little bit of room and a little bit of wiggle room for people to move slow when they have to do stuff. And what I'm basically talking about is Trent Baalke. You see, he's the football leader. Shaq Khan made bumpers and made a lot of money doing a bunch of other stuff and soccer and all of that. I'm looking at the top football person in charge. If my kids go out here and act like a fool in school and I keep getting phone calls, you know what? It's on me. Inherently, Doug stands there and says it's on the coaches, and I get that. But a coach can't do much with what somebody gives him if it's inadequate. So in the next segment, we're going to go past, present, and future. Basically, I answered the question, why can't they prosper? They can't prosper because they aren't good enough. Ain't nobody going to walk up and give you a Lombardi trophy. That has to be created. And I'm not blaming the fans one bit. I know how you feel. And you let that out all the time. At some point, can we make this connection? Because there are a lot of fans that don't feel the same way. I get inundated with people saying, it could be worse. I remember how it used to be. Well, I'm here to tell you that has absolutely nothing to do with what's going to be tomorrow for those little fans that we want to grow up and watch them have some prosperity. I'll get into all of that, man. And I'm going to absolutely try to do my absolute best to tell you exactly why I feel what I feel about the past, the present, and the future of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we'll do all of that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, man, I got to tell you about the Gametime app. If you are like me, you are procrastinating sometimes when it's time for you to buy tickets to events, sporting events, concerts, comedy shows, which I really do like. And I always know I can get them at the last minute because Gametime takes care of that for me. Many times people say your lack of preparation is not my emergency. Gametime doesn't speak that nonsense. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets for you. They have zone deals. You can pick the section, Gametime picks the seats, and you get a chance to actually see what it looks like from your seat. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. All right, segment 2 here on Locked On Jaguars, man. We are talking about the future, and thanks for y'all that's joining me live here. We're talking about the past, the present, and the future of the Jacksonville Jaguars. There's not been a lot of winning, right? And one of the things that I like to do is I try to be relatable. I try to be relatable in my thought process, and I'll tell you where it comes from. I grew up dirt poor. The Jaguars have basically been a poor organization when it comes to, not poor when it comes to valuation, not poor, not genuine good times or nothing like that. But what I am saying is in terms of history, tradition, winning, and reasons to believe in the positivity of the things that are probably promised tomorrow, the Jacksonville Jaguars would be below the poverty level. I'm sorry, you can get angry at me all you want to, but I'm telling you, it's not in spirit. When I grew up poor, we were happy. You couldn't tell us we were dirt poor. You couldn't tell us that what we were eating, because there was a lot of love. And there's a lot of love in Jacksonville. There's probably the love outweighs the reasons why you need to be loving something if you're a Jacksonville Jaguar fan. I get it. This is for you. This is for everybody that's been the faithful 50,000 that I call them, that have bought tickets throughout the years, that have they've looked like winners, even though they haven't. The football self-esteem of this city is high compared to the reasons why you would actually have to be having high self-esteem. You haven't allowed these things to affect you. You haven't allowed the fact that you only had 8 winning seasons in 27 years to affect your fandom. But in the present, a little bit, the only thing we have is that enthusiasm. The only thing we have is where you come from. And the reason why I relate it to growing up being poor, growing up in the hood, having some tough situations and having to overcome bullies and learn how to navigate and even learn how to get my squabbles up and keep my wallet game up to date. For y'all that don't know what wallet game is, it's your ability to throw your hands, right? Because we used to do that without picking up weapons. The thing is Jaguar fans can fight with anybody. They can get on with it with anybody, with the best of them. They can roll with it because they're used to fighting. They're used to scrapping. They can make a whole bunch out of almost nothing that they've been given in return because they're used to it, right? But where I am now as a man is I learned a lot of stuff. I pulled a lot of things from my past, but right now I'm sitting here because at some point I said, I'm like a young boy, never broke again. I don't ever want to go back to being poor. I don't ever want to go back to being hungry. I don't want my kids being hungry. So the relationship that I'm drawing is I don't want the fans of this city, the little boy on that thumbnail, to be having these same conversations 25 years from now. And the only way that's going to change is you have to realize in your mind you cannot accept mediocrity. If I hear one more person tell me it ain't like it used to be, I do not care. I could care less. Could care less? Oh, no, I could not care. I couldn't care less. Shout out to Duval County Education System for me being able to correct myself. But I don't give a damn about that. I do when it, in terms of the only thing, let me tell you, the only thing that'll make that worth it is if we ever prosper. Because then I'll say, look where I came from. And then the magic of where I came from will be, how did I get here? It's not where you are. It's not where you've been, but it's the lessons you learned from going from poverty to the penthouse. And what I'm talking about is the poverty from the penthouse is, think about the Patriots. They're going to fire one of the greatest coaches maybe in history of football in any team sport, because they are used to winning because of that coach, and now they're not winning anymore. Do you hear one person in New England say, woo, I remember when we had the little man hiking the ball on the helmet? Or, woo, I remember the snowplow game. Boy, we sure came a long way. Hell no. You know what they're talking about? They're talking about what's happened the last 15, 20 years. And their standard is, that's what we can be. Nobody thought back then when I was a kid or a young teenager, I never thought the Patriots was going to do anything. I never thought the orange uniform Tampa Bay Buccaneers, looking like something you buy off an ice cream truck, were going to be any good. But they changed it. You know why they changed it? Because the uniform, the city, the weather, the grass has nothing to do with it. Because they got the right person in charge up top. And they made decisions, and they built that thing brick by brick by brick by brick until they were a dynasty. When Trevor Lawrence was available to the Jaguars, before they ever picked him, I said, this is where you have to do everything right. Not, we got a quarterback, it's all good, everything's going to be all right. No, everything's going to be wrong if you don't do all of the things that you need to do. You can have a year here or a year there. You can have a year where you win all these games down the stretch and have a 27-point comeback in the playoffs. But is that where you really want to be? Do you really want to sit in your future because of your present? Oh, it feels good. It feels better than it used to feel, but I'm satisfied with that. Is that really what you want? This is why when folks ask me, why am I so negative? I'm not negative. I'm positive. It feels negative because you don't want to hear it. The bottom line is, though, they don't have a GM that's going to take them to the promised land. If I'm wrong, I promise you, I'll buy lunch for 100 people. That if he doesn't change, and that is the thing, Trent Baalke is Trent Baalke. He is not going to change. He's going to keep doing what he's doing. He's going to keep drafting for trades. He's going to keep making decisions. And you know what? More power to him. I like people that are consistent, and he's consistently showed you that he's not going to be able to be a winner. Now, are we going to consistently hope for something else when we continue to see the things that we see? I ain't doing this for me. I'm a 54-year-old man with 4 revenue streams. I'm good. I'm doing this for y'all. I'm doing this for those little fans. I'm doing this for those kids that have never seen a winner. I'm doing it for the grown people that go to that stadium, that run around on the slab, that have signs, that spend their disposable income on this team, whose parents did the same thing when they were kids. Stop sitting here thinking things are going to change if you don't change yourself. You think Tampa Bay just snapped their fingers, or the Patriots just snapped their fingers and all of this stuff happened? No, they built it brick by brick. And yeah, they got a quarterback in New England, and I get it. But you think you got a quarterback in Jacksonville? Well, guess what? You need to do all of the things. Forget all of the slogans. We're going to talk about that in a minute, too. There are things that we settle for around here that have absolutely nothing to do with this team being able to win a damn thing. I'm going to tell you about that, and I'm going to help you free your mind, and hopefully the rest will follow. We'll do all of that. Third and final segment here on Locked On Jags. Well, first, I have to let you know about Locked On Sports Today. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for your 24/7, covering the sports and the top stories of the day with local experts of Locked On. Plus, our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. I'll put a bow tie on all of this stuff and hopefully give you an idea of exactly what I'm talking about. And I'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, I got to talk to you about LinkedIn Talent Solutions, because if you have ever done what I did and opened a couple of businesses, I can attest, and I'm a witness. The hardest thing to do is finding qualified applicants. Once you find the qualified applicants, things get a little bit easier for you. So that's the hardest part of this whole deal. And LinkedIn has you covered when you do that. It's not just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the place to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. They even launch a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, third and final segment here on Locked On Jaguars. I'm appreciative of everyone who has joined me for this live. I'll run through some comments. My man Cowboy says he finally caught it live. A series of missed fortunate events have hindered the Jags this year. I know that. That's cool. Ant Brown, that's exactly how some fans think. Derek Conroy says he totally agrees. Hey, man, I love all of that, and that's great. And I great. Keep the comments going. If I don't answer them all here, I'll try to answer them on YouTube or hit you on social media and answer those questions on social media. But listen, I'm not telling people how to fan. Nothing irritates me more than telling folks who are fans how they need to be doing that. That's your business. You spend your money. You can spend your emotional currency the way you feel like it. You could do all of that stuff the way you feel like it. I'm just more or less trying to answer a bunch of questions in a vacuum here and get the mindset of a lot of people all in one room so you understand and have clarity about how I feel. And if you grab just a little mustard seed of whatever to make you feel better, then that's fine. Nothing will make you feel better than winning. Nothing changes these narratives more than anything than winning. And by winning, I don't mean going 9-8 and losing in the second round of the playoffs. I want folks to think bigger. How do we think bigger and how do we think out of the box, especially if we've never been there as a franchise? Newsflash, I am 54 years old. The Jaguars are 27 years old. So for the first 27 years of my life, I rooted for somebody else. Well, once I was 6, I did. So I grew up in the DMV. I used to root for the Washington franchise, right? I saw them win 3 Super Bowls in, I think, 10 years or 11 years. And they went to 2 other Super Bowls. So I saw them. I saw Joe Gibbs. I knew what the expectation was from a fan perspective. I'm not going to sit here and pretend and tell you that I know what it's like to be a GM, an owner, or a coach. I don't. I just know what it looks like, and I know what it feels like as a fan when you are around that type of excellence. Free your mind, and the rest will follow. The song that I got that from doesn't say the rest. It says you know what, but we ain't going to do that here. It's a family show. The past is the past. It's a part of the fiber of who you are. A lot of the things that you get help you get to where you are today if you're a human being. What happened on the field for the Jacksonville Jaguars 8 years ago, this is the difference between life and sports. It has absolutely nothing to do with what's going to help them now. What happened in the playoffs last year or at the end of the season last year could have been used as motivation, and it's something to learn from. But now the Jaguars had a hot start, and now they're fading down the stretch. So obviously that lesson did not carry over. And coaches talk all the time saying garbage in, garbage out. Yeah, you can use it as an educational tool, but it won't help you this year with 1 first down. And now we see that because there are elements of this team that were good last year or at the end of last year that aren't very good this year. How'd that happen? I'll tell you how it happened. They stood pat. They thought they had it. They thought they had it licked. They figured they were going to run it back with the team that they had because they thought that there was just this natural progression from growing from a year ago with a bunch of young players. You got to take hard inventory looks at yourself. There were areas that they could have improved this team, and they sat there and they did not do it because they thought these little kids were just going to grow up naturally and turn into winners. And y'all bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. Some of y'all. Now, when I say y'all or us, I don't mean it's everybody. All right? I mean it's a lot of people that bought in to what the Jaguars are. Let me give you some recent history. 4 out of the last 6 years, they finished in dead last in the AFC South. They ain't going to happen this year. It's almost impossible numerically for it to be a possibility. But I will say 4 out of the last 6. Here's the thing. They finished first in 2017 and then 4 straight years of dead last. If that isn't the recent history to tell you that this thing can go negatively really, really quick if you just sit there and think that it's just going to change. So what I'm advocating for right now is this. Shad Khan, whoever, I don't care. I'm not with the clown emojis and all of that, and nor am I with begging them to fire someone. I'm begging them to change their mindset. When you get new prosperity, you have to have a new way of doing things. You can't keep doing it the old way. You can't. You have to have a different thought process. You have to be outside of the box. You have to go for it with aggression. As much as I've gotten on people like John Lynch for traded all that currency for Trey Lance, it didn't work. You think he sat there and cried and felt sorry for himself? Nah, you know what he did? He signed Javon Hargrove, and then he went out in free agency and got Chase Young, and then he traded for Randy Gregory and built his line, the strength of their defense, and he made it even better. He had Deebo Samuel, running back, wide receiver, all of that, whatever you want to call him. He went and got CMC. He did not rest. He did not sit and say, oh, well, no. He kept his foot on the gas and pushed it all the way to the floor. This organization needs change. This organization needs to continue to grow. Yeah, you're better than you were before, but that still ain't good enough. So is that what we're doing? Do we get trophies in reverse? Do we get trophies for advancing in life, or do we get trophies for actually winning something? Jaguar fans, I'm not saying that what you go through or what you do or say is going to affect anything. I just want you to affect yourselves. When you hit me up with, oh man, it's better than it used to be, you're the one I'm talking to. That still ain't good enough. It better be better than it used to be, because you know how bad it was before? Pork and beans and grits. No meat. That's what you ate every day for most of the first 20 years of this franchise. So yeah, if you hit the lottery and you go get a cold can of pork and beans or some sardines and some Vienna sausage, that's fine. If it just reminds you and motivates you to not want to go back to where you were. But please don't do that and act like that's all you can eat because that's all you got. No, stop settling. Stop settling. Stop going through these mental gymnastics telling yourself just so you can feel better. Well, just like, it is 2 years straight. 2 years straight of this is going to get that man, Trent Baalke, another year on this job. And then it's going to turn into 3 years. And then it's going to turn into 4 years. What are we doing? What are we doing? I'll tell you what you're doing. You're squandering the rookie contract of a quarterback. You might be on your way to squandering his health by having a bad offensive line, or his confidence, which is even more important for a quarterback. All these quarterbacks you see that ended up being busts, and then they hang around, and then all of a sudden in year 10 or 12, they get a chance to play, and now they're better. You know what they did? They went through a confidence rehab. They were broken. They probably could have been good from the very beginning, but you know why? You didn't surround them with enough, and you didn't put enough resources around them to help. Just don't lie to yourself. I'm not saying what you say or what you do is going to help this organization change, but it will help you feel better if you realize the reality of who you are and why you're there, because it'll temper your expectations and it'll allow you to not have anxiety at night. You won't have any anxiety at night if you check out Locked On Sports Today, because Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, we got a crossover show coming up Thursday. What I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm going to give up my Jaguars Christmas list. I'm going to tell you everything I want. I ain't been naughty. Well, a little bit, but you know what I'm saying. I'm going to give out my Christmas list But it's not going to be for me. It's going to be for y'all. What do I want y'all to get for Christmas? And I'll tell you all about it on the next episode of Locked On Jaguars. You guys make sure you take care of yourself. And we'll see you next time.
You are Locked On Jaguars,